Aloha, everyone! It's Wednesday, and that means it's Newsday. There once was a show that streamed each day, and the name of the stream was the Daily AA. The news rolled in, and we had our say. Oh, chat, my watchers, chat. Huh. Soon may the algorithm come to bring us stories of AI fun. Each day when the streaming is done, we'll click subscribe and go. Go on to stories like how scientists discover the moment AI truly understands language. Maucere, the latest AI filmmaking tool from Moon Valley, is publicly available. Google's AI overviews hit an EU antitrust complaint, and OpenAI and Microsoft bankroll new AI training for teachers. It is July 9th, 2025, episode 503. Today we have Andy, and I am Jyunmi, and this is the Daily AI Show. Thank you, everyone, for joining the live stream, and to all of you who are watching a little later. If you haven't already, click the bell, like, subscribe, and join the newsletter at thedailyAIshow.com. Okay, well, let's start off with a story from Moon Valley. If you haven't heard already, Moon Valley is a text to video, generative AI company. And they came out with their foundational model called Marley a few months ago, and they had people in beta, but you had to be on the wait list and all of those kinds of things. But they have officially released it to the public. And it's the same along the lines of the similar pricing you'll see from, things like Runway and whatnot. But what's interesting about Marley is, number one, it was co-founded by some former DeepMind researchers. But the main thing is that it is only trained on fully licensed training data. So, and since this is a video model, that includes, various videos, films, television shows, and related content. Now, I haven't gotten to try Marley myself, but what's really interesting about them is they are exploring more of the things that filmmakers really want, and beyond the licensing thing, because no one wants to deal with copyright or lawsuit issues in the future. But what they're proposing is that you have far more control. So in the latest batches of text to video or video generative AI models, we've seen a lot of things like, model replacement or first frame, last frame, things like that. And so it has all of those capabilities, and some of the things that they're in current beta right now will allow you 3D manipulation of the space, meaning you can control movement, sections of movement, points of control, camera control, those kinds of things. And the next batch is going to be like lighting controls. So think about volumetric lighting and lighting sources and things like that. So I'm really excited about the story because, well, number one, I really don't like to talk about any vaporware, and there's thousands of AI apps out there, wrappers of different sources, but this one seems to have some legs because they're releasing it publicly. And of course, I know they choose the best stuff for their website, but it really looks good. So if you head over to Moon Valley, you can check out some of that. I certainly will be looking at this a little more in depth, and hopefully, maybe somewhere down the line, we'll get a demo. Right now, I did the whole sign up for all the wait lists and everything like that. So that was my most exciting story that I wanted to cover today. But yeah, I just wanted to make sure that that T was crossed and that I was dotted. So Andy, how about you? What do you got?
Okay, I want to just hit the two big headlines I think that most newsletters and others are talking about today, and I'm not even going to provide any details on them. You can find lots of information about those. We like to dive a little deeper and surface the things that are more interesting and exciting, like what Jyunmi was just telling you about. But the two things you should be aware of are that Grok 4 is going to be, on a release at 8 p.m. Pacific today. There's a show that's going to go, a live stream that will explain what Grok 4 can do. So that's from XAI. That's Elon Musk's AI company. And I had a little brain sidetrack there because I remember seeing something this week. There were pictures of inside XAI's offices where the hallways and the conference rooms are lined with tents for the staff who work there. And they live there in the offices. They sleep in their tents in the offices. And there were pictures of a person who didn't have a tent, just had a pad, like one of those air mattress kind of things. And they were like asleep with that somebody had taken a picture of them from above. So XAI is, an Elon Musk startup where you're expected to work yourself to the bone. It's not, there's no work-life balance there. It's all work. And that's an exciting thing for young single people. I can't imagine, more practice people doing. But anyway, let's see what they've built. Grok 4 is going to be a considerable new frontier model, and it'll be announced later today. I guess I did dive a little deeper on that discussion than I expected to. I wanted to give you that headline. The other headline is that Meta poached one of the top researchers for AI models at Apple. And this is creating quite a bit of buzz because Apple is behind the game, let's say, in a lot of ways. And, they've more recently been talking to other companies about providing the advances to Siri that they have not been able to develop internally. Nonetheless, they do have some capable researchers, as evidenced by Meta's brain poaching, and now it's hit Apple as well, which could retard Apple's developments a little bit further. But the one thing that I wanted to lead off with that's actually exciting is about Hugging Face. Now, Hugging Face is the de facto AI open source platform. It's where you can get models, all the full range of models. They have also announced recently, and we talked about this just last week, I think, they've announced a partnership for inference provision by Grok, the LPU or language processing unit chip developer, which is a provider of inference or compute speed for generative AI. And so they have a full service offering for open source developers. And now they're moving into robotics. In April, they acquired a French robotics firm called Pollen Robotics. And today they're making available their Ricci Mini robot for $299. On board is a Raspberry Pi computer, and it's designed to allow you to connect this Ricci Mini on your desktop. It'll be sitting there next to you. It is designed for your human robot interaction. So it'll be a hardware device that allows you to, I guess, talk to your AI, and you can run AI models on your desktop or laptop and have it communicating through the robot. And it's designed really like Raspberry Pi for sort of hacker grade, like home DIY exploration, creative coding, experimentation. And so this is one of the very first consumer products that's reachable by you to start to play with the combination of AI and embodied AI so that the AI has control through a vision language action model over the Ricci Mini device on your desktop. So I think that's pretty cool. One of the things that's notable about this is that this is an open source hardware project. So all of the designs and details and systems that are behind the Ricci Mini robot are available for you to elaborate on. If you want to build your own extensions of that, you can. And why that's meaningful is that, there's a pretty good probability that within the next couple of years, we'll see the beginnings of big robots, humanoid type robots, being in our homes and in our workplaces alongside us humans. And one of the concerns is that this world that's coming will be a few major companies like X and like Unitree, that are the Chinese company that has the relatively inexpensive, around $15,000 robot. They're going to be putting these things in our homes, but you don't really have a window into the black box that it runs. And they're connected to the internet in order to accomplish things for you. And it's a little scary to have these millions of robots around our homes, where private corporations own basically this input device in your home that you're interacting with, and you don't really know what the security levels are there. So open source robotics is a counterpoint to that, which means that you would have complete control over it. And importantly, you'll be able to run local AIs, smaller AIs that NVIDIA and other companies are starting to build, that are focused on robotic control. And you'll be able to run those locally on your desktop or laptop without connection to the internet. So you can have a private and very proficient robot in your home that isn't connected somehow to, the man out there, so to speak.
Right. Oh, I'm excited about that. I was just thinking, because with open source, now you're going to get form factors of robots that aren't necessarily in line with what the major, companies or manufacturers are going to release. So I think what we're going to see is a lot of Star Wars and Star Trek type robots in people's homes, just because they've always wanted.
I've always wanted an R2D2 in my home.
Exactly.
I just don't understand how it's going to make it around the kitchen counter. It's not wide
well,
enough.
you're just going to have to get the jetpack module so that it can fly upstairs and things like that. I did kind of want to weave off of your earlier story. Before I do that, though, I'm going to bring on Karl. Hey, Karl.
Yay!
What's happening?
Hey. So I wanted to go back and weave off of, or at least expand upon the Grok story. So that was some great insight about how there's no work-life balance, and they're living in tents over there in the offices, because that might explain some of the behavior that the improved Grok is issuing. Plenty of stories touching upon this, so I'm sure everyone has heard about it. But Grok is still giving some really out there and misguided answers, because it's mostly based off of X or Twitter. So we're gonna have to figure out a better filtering system for information and the likelihood of what the next word is and those kinds of things. Well, since Karl,
I thought you were going to mention that apparently Grok is promoting Hitler and saying a bunch of fascist tropes.
Oh yeah.
And is that really what you're referring to?
Well, there's a lot of it is here. I'll bring up the story. I was reading about it over on TechCrunch. Let me see if I can pull it up here. But essentially, Grok has been having some issues. So on Friday, Musk had announced that improved Grok had been improved significantly. But from that announcement, there's been a bunch of inflammatory responses to users. Like in one post, Grok wrote that once you know about the pervasive ideological biases, propaganda, and subversive tropes in Hollywood, like anti-white stereotypes, forced diversity, or historical revisionism, it shatters the immersion. So and then goes on to talk about Jewish executive and dominating leadership and all of those kinds of things, which are just wrong. So so the accuracy of the information coming out of Grok, the improved version, is still a big problem.
Let's just hasten to add that almost any model can be caused by your prompting and
Sure.
or your manipulation of different sort of jailbreak hacks. It can be caused to say some things that are not politically correct.
For sure.
But X and XAI are sort of their foundation, their constitution is there is no politically correct. Anything can be said, and it's like open game. Hate speech is okay, I guess, in the world of X. So anyway, I just wanted to make it clear that we don't have any details on how or why Grok models have started to hit the news because they were advocating a revisionist history around Hitler. But just know that you can force a model to do some things that it's not going to do in daily practical use.
Gotcha. All right. So, Karl, do you have a story that burns with fiery passion that you need to talk about?
I don't know about burns with passion. It's more of I don't know if we've already covered this. I feel it's kind of old news, but it seems that Apple is considering replacing. I don't know if we've covered it last week, but Apple's think of replacing Siri with either Anthropic or ChatGPT. And
Right.
there was a good podcast from the Big Technology podcast on it, talking about, I think they're thinking, or somebody wrote something that Anthropic may be in the driver's seat for that. But the negotiations are about the hundreds of the increasing millions every year rather than a set fee or something like that. So that was the story. And I think like the negotiations are high, potentially because the amount of server, like imagine if the amount of people suddenly using Anthropic on their phones, what, like in terms of inference and actual like compute, like what does that mean? And what does that mean for Anthropic to be doing that?
Yeah, there as I understand it, there's a lot of possible theories or hypotheses going around because it's just in discussion, right? Discussion for replacement, discussion for acquisition, because even we talked about a possible Perplexity acquisition or possible Anthropic acquisition, and what would the likelihood be of that possibility. And then, of course, with the Google antitrust suit going out, or going on, I should say, Apple looking for an alternative. But unless you found a recent, update to that, I think that's all still in the rumor mill.
I think John Gruber, or I think one of the Apple insiders, that's where I kind of listened to it, found like they had more insider knowledge about like Anthropic being in the lead. And it seems that because it seems like there's a more safety fit on that. And also it just seems, I don't know if it seems to work better with how it's put on top of the infrastructure, but I think it's important because I think a couple of days ago, one of Apple's like AI people left to join Meta. So there was that. And then, so yeah, we're just not sure like where Apple's going to go, because obviously it makes sense if they want to control the entire ecosystem. They have either their own models that they have to run off of rather than rely on somebody else, which then you're kind of stuck with that with that lab and how they do things. It's not like you can control what specifically, right?
Well, some of the details that I heard when it was more conjecture or rumor was that they were trying to, or Apple was trying to engage with Anthropic or OpenAI in terms of getting their own model or their own version to run within their own data centers and their own pipeline. So that might actually add a level of complexity as well, considering that Apple is promoting the privacy and data protection side of their brand. So we'll see how that kind of plays out.
Yeah, I don't know, because it's hard, because if you do it, if you pop it for next year, I think the behaviors have been set. Like, why would I open Siri when I'm going to open, let's say, ChatGPT? And the voice component of ChatGPT and OpenAI is much more advanced than Anthropic's. So it's like, okay, because that's what you use Siri for, right? You use your voice.
Right.
Engage with it. So.
How likely are they to just get rid of their brand up to this point? I mean, they could just completely cut out Siri and just plug in, advanced voice mode.
That makes the most sense, because it doesn't make any sense now to like still kind of use Siri. Like it's kind of a, like, what are you doing? Like it's gonna take too long for you to it's gonna take too long for you to, you can't make your own models. I don't think that makes sense anymore. No, I don't think that makes sense. Maybe somebody thinks that makes sense.
Well, it's clear that Apple has not been able to build their own models and deploy them within their own ecosystem. So hence the discussions with the external model providers. Yeah. But nonetheless, I think Jyunmi's on the right track in terms of Apple needing to have their own proprietary version of it, because they need to have really tight integration with all of the features and functions on the phone itself. Not just voice interaction with a chat response model. It's got to be able to Siri on the phone and in the Mac OS system has to be able to do a lot of things with those devices that only Apple can allow. The other providers of voice interface to large language models are not going to be able to have the complete integration with the device that I think is in the vision of Apple Intelligence.
Yeah, but that's making the assumption that Apple's going to continue trying to do this exact same thing with their phones. I don't know if that is necessarily the correct approach, because I don't know if it's an existential crisis, because like you have applications, right? But obviously there's some technologists who are thinking, hey, people will stop buying your phones if you don't do it correctly. I don't think that's the case. I was like, I'm just going to use the ChatGPT app, right? Versus using Siri itself. So, but like, how would you?
So I think the objective is to get to the point where the very capable combination of features and functions that you have on an iPhone are paired with a Siri that may be powered by a better language model than Apple has been able to build internally, and marshals that whole thing in a way that Siri today doesn't do. It doesn't do it well at all. I tried it yesterday just to ask it to find a telephone number on the web and call it, and it could not do that. I mean, that's just crazy. Yeah, let's move on though, because I think we've kind of covered on that.
Digressed a little bit. Okay. Yeah. Well, I'm going to do a lightning round of not so positive news in the AI, but are important to be aware of. So, number one is we're seeing some pushback on a few things in the AI world. And I'm going to start it off with Wimbledon. So apparently in the latest Wimbledon matches or tournament, the committee or the group that's in charge of that event implemented an AI-based system to call to act as a line judge. They're calling it the electronic line calling system. So a bunch of big tennis players were criticizing the technology because there seemed to be a significant some significant errors or inaccuracies in a bunch of the calls. There in the traditional British way, Jack Draper, the number one British player, said that he felt some line calls were wrong, and he did not think the technology was 100% accurate. And to me, what that sounds like is the British equivalent of it's absolute rubbish. So we will. So we'll see what comes out of that. But some of the more interesting notes to see limitations on Wimbledon's implementation is another player, Ben Shilton, had to speed up his match because the sunlight was dimming. The sun was setting, and apparently the system does not work well in dim light. So not based on just some some ancillary conclusions or responses there, does not look like the implementation was fully vetted, or I shouldn't say that. It seems to have some issues that it needs to overcome before it's fully accepted by all the tennis players and things like that. Okay, that was not so lightning round. We'll pick it up a little faster than that. Coming out of Nikkei Asia, there's a story about some researchers from organizations like Japan's Waseda University, South Korea's KIST, and China's Peking University, and also the University of Washington and Columbia University, says that a bunch of papers that are being released through their review process and things like that have positive review only statements built into the into these studies, so that when automated systems, AI systems, or a version of, I guess, AST's systems to review the paper will spike it or generate positive assessment of the paper. Now, seems to be a little bit of back and forth on this because there is no formalized method of implementing AI when it comes to the review process. But because more and more studies are coming out, it's much of a bigger burden on the reviewers to get through them faster. So they have started to implement AI as part of the review system. Now, pros and cons of that seem to be they're both testing the waters in terms of, one, using AI to help them do their peer reviews, and two, the researchers fighting back, saying, well, if you're going to use AI and not take the time to properly review my paper, then we're going to spike it with some phrases to help it get a better standing in the review process. So even in the research and science community, there seems to be a little back and forth academia issues. One of the stories I'd mentioned in the opening, Google AI Overviews is being hit with an EU antitrust complaint from a group of independent publishers, saying that essentially it has caused and continue to cause harm to these publishers, including news publishers, in the form of traffic, readership, and revenue loss. And I know we've at some point or another kind of touched upon this. This is going to be a thing and a trend that's going to grow, because we're seeing more and more traffic going to be coming directly from either AI sources or things like ChatGPT, Perplexity, and that kind of traffic covering that. After that, apparently Microsoft and their Xbox department, if you will, there were a lot of sweeping layoffs announced from Microsoft this week, and Xbox and their gaming studios were hit the hardest. Their leadership there were their advice to all of the people that are laying off, who it rightly had an issue with the way that Microsoft was doing these layoffs and how it affected them and these kinds of things. They were told that perhaps they should use a chatbot or AI service to help them through this emotional change, being laid off. I think that's a little tone deaf, but again, my personal opinion on this. But yeah, apparently the gaming studio, Matt Turnbull, said that he would be remiss if he wasn't trying to offer the best advice under the current circumstances. And the best advice were that these are really challenging times. And if you're navigating a layoff or even quietly preparing for one, you're not alone and you don't have to go it alone. No AI tool is a replacement for your voice and your lived experience, but a time when mental energy is scarce, these tools can help you unstuck faster, calmer, and more clarity. Now, the full statement does sound a little more balanced as opposed to the catchy headlines on there, but I don't think it's really answering the main issue is of the layoff itself and how they process through that. Okay, one last big one here. Apparently, Marco Rubio has been impersonated using AI voice to call a bunch of high-level officials. This comes in from the Washington Post. Apparently, an unknown individual contacted at least 5 government officials, including 3 foreign ministers, a U.S. governor, a member of Congress. So this is just highlighting some of the stories I think we will be seeing more and more of, because I mean we touched upon this in our review, our mid-year review of our 2025 predictions, and this is just another case of that. You only need about 20 seconds of somebody's voice to replicate it, and the more influential you are or whatnot, you can take steps to social engineer the results that you're looking for. So be careful out there, everybody. All right, I'm going to leave it at that for all the downer news. Andy and Karl, do you have upper news?
I do. I want to touch on AI in education. I have two stories that are news this week. One is that ChatGPT has kind of leaked a new feature that they're calling Study Together. And there's actually a screenshot somebody posted on X where they actually had a drop down where you have all these actions that you can do with the chat dialog box with ChatGPT, and it asks what you want to do, and there's all these choices. And the one at the very bottom was Study Together, but it doesn't do anything yet. So the question posed on the X post was, well, what's this for? How does that work? And OpenAI isn't saying anything formally about it yet, but the speculation is that in response to concerns about ChatGPT being used by lone students in their dorm rooms and generating, their homework in effect, and bypassing the personal creative effort that's necessary to actually produce something that would be submitted for assessment. We talked about this yesterday. that study together will be either an AI to student exchange that is more dynamic and follows some of the principles we talked about yesterday, which is, okay, now the AI isn't just providing answers and letting you copy and paste them into some submission, but rather it's being more Socratic as a tutor. But it could also be a group effort where you have, and we think this is the more likely result that'll be released ultimately, and that is you and your colleagues in your study group, instead of using a third-party study platform, group study platform, you would be able within ChatGPT to create a study together group where you can share information and be in real time with your fellow students working on, whatever the assignments are or whatever the study objectives are. So that's a move in the right direction to support education. The other move in the right direction is, again, from OpenAI. Microsoft plus OpenAI plus Anthropic have aligned with the American Federation of Teachers and are providing resources to the American Federation of Teachers. And with Anthropic being, one of the models that's, going to be included in this platform, to create a national AI training hub for educators, so that educators will learn how best to integrate AI technology into their classrooms. And their objective is to reach 400,000 educators. And of course, there are many more than 400,000 teachers in the United States alone. But that American Federation of Teachers is going to try to do their initial pilot with up to 400,000 teachers, helping them with new tools. Maybe study together is one of the things that OpenAI is bringing to the party there. But in addition to that, they're providing $10 million to that, which is, really a drop in the bucket for such a big, enterprise. But they're going to be providing lots of services as well.
Yeah,
so
collectively, they're going to be spending about 23 million on the project, which is great. But like you said, that is a drop in the bucket. If you've been paying attention to some of the hiring channels and some of the positions that they've been putting out for the last few months, their education or educational institution section has been ramping up on that side as well. So I'm glad that there is this progress here, and it might align with some of the things that are coming out of the current administration, saying things like the corporations will need to push forward AI literacy and AI education. So I guess this is a good step towards that. Always like to see where there seems to be positive AI adoption. And hopefully this will help get the ball rolling so that educators who have taken the training can spread that amongst their peers in the various venues and avenues that the educators all conglomerate in. Now, I did want to go on the more positive side, and but still kind of talk about this thing that that might be a little bigger than that's kind of mentioned in the story. But apparently there seems to be a lot of, or at least this subsector of the AI industry seems to have some great potential. This is from a TechCrunch article I was reading yesterday, for consolidation in the data side of things for AI. So we all know that data is described as the new gold or the new oil. It's a great commodity. It's worth more than oil now, and these kinds of things. And so there's a lot of data startups, data companies out there that aggregate and collect all data points. There's definitely some pros and cons about this in society, but because it makes money, it's going to continue. But all of these companies have started up which cover a specific section or subsection or a niche, or they talk about, or their data set is for a particular use case. And these companies have grown very large and very profitable. But now that AI needs absolutely everything, there are some big names out there trying to consolidate these companies, like a company in AI known as Databricks. We've talked about them before. They bought a data company called Neon for $1 billion. Salesforce has been buying up companies as well, particularly Informatica for $8 billion. And so there seems to be this identified trend where there's consolidation of these data companies. Now, I wanted to see if I can get both of your opinions on, and of course, chat, please let us know. What are the big pros and cons that come that smack you in the face when you hear that all of these data companies are now being consolidated under a few pillars or a few umbrellas here? Is there anything that's self-evident that we need to keep an eye on that might be a problem down the line, or is it all good?
Well, let me say that often consolidation is a response to a declining importance in that particular market segment, not increasing importance. That is, certain industries, which had multiple players when they were in their growth phase, now being sort of disrupted by alternatives. The consolidation happens in order to reduce the overall overhead that is involved in managing that element in the industry structure. So I'm going to say, I don't know the answer, but I'm going to guess that consolidation of data companies is that there's been a democratization of access to data that's driven by the frontier models, which have already hoovered up all the information on the internet. And only where there are proprietary and protected data sets is there any sort of defensible moat for a data company. And so the consolidation may be in part that they're bringing together those pieces that are still protectable in a world where universal access to data is quickly arriving for us. And at the same time, we're trying to reduce the administrative overhead for managing that, that protected set of data. So that's one possible explanation for it. The other possible explanation is that data is going to continue to be the fundamental resource that provides models with their knowledge, not their intelligence, not their reasoning capabilities, but the training data is essential to that. But I'm skeptical about that just because it's clear that self-generated AI data, synthetic data, as it's called, is possible and practical and achieves the levels of training that AI models need without having to resort to real data that is collected and protected by data companies.
Gotcha. Karl, do you have any insights on this?
I don't really have anything else to add in terms of that.
Gotcha.
That's the only.
I want to talk with you, Karl, about something that I know we're both very interested in, which is a trend that's happening in the world of vibe coding. So these agents that can write code for you and build applications for you from natural language prompts are getting better and better. Now, there's two platforms out there that are, in addition to Cursor and Windsurf, in the hands of more expert developers that are accessible to no code or low code, experimenters like myself. And one of them is lovable.dev and the other is Replit. Now, Lovable just last week released their agent mode, which reportedly reduces build errors and up to 90%. So one of the things that happens when you're working with Lovable is it'll say, okay, I've got a plan, approve the plan here, review the SQL. This has got to change in the database. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and execute the plan. And then it says, okay, I've just completed the plan. And then there's a big flashing red thing there that says build error, right? That build error largely has to do, in my experience, with TypeScript errors, and not having set up all the necessary dependencies across multiple elements of the software stack. But this new agent, it's producing 90% reduction in build errors. Well, I'm excited to use that. It has a wholly different pricing model in it. So unlike the previous sort of one shot, I'm going to kind of do my plan and build it. This new agent can think, plan, take actions independently. So we're adding agentic capabilities on top of what were already understood to be sort of mixture of agents, methods within these coding platforms. Simultaneously, and announced just this week, Replit introduces dynamic intelligence for its agent. This is adding 3 capabilities: extended thinking, a high power model, so a more advanced model, and web search, so that it can go out there and scoop up examples of code that may be relevant to your own code requirements and so on. And that's improving context awareness within Replit, iterative reasoning, and autonomous behavior. And those are the 3 things that I highlight as the things that we want coding agents and ultimately generalized agents like GenSpark and Skywork, is it Skywork, and others. And then Karl and I were just talking last night about a new one on the block, which is Emergent. So Emergent is a new coding agent that takes a slightly different approach, very autonomous, and develops the full stack from the single prompt. Does, like, by contrast, Lovable or Replit do require that you set up a database. There's a nice integration with Supabase within Lovable, but in Replit you have to set up a database separately and then integrate your Replit code with that database. They may have changed that recently. I'm not sure about that, but by contrast, now this Emergent one does everything. It'll do the front end, the back end, do it better than the other players, and it's got a lot of buzz within the last several weeks. And so, Karl, you have played with it. So you've done something with Emergent. The big top line news here is that all these coding agents are getting better and better. They're becoming more intelligent agents. And now we have a new player on the block that seems to be in the hands of people who have worked with all of them. It's impressing them. So Emergent.
I think like the I don't know, there's so many routes avenues that we could take this, but I think the big one was, we have one client that was saying, hey, could we buy this tool, or based on your presentation, could we build it ourselves? And then you kind of look at what they're looking to buy, and then you kind of look at what could be built. But I think the thing that people forget is, hey, I don't want you to look at it today. I don't want you to look at like what's possible, what you could build today, but like, what could this thing look like in 6 months, and also assess everything against that 6 to 12 month period, because the SaaS tool that you're looking at, does it have a moat? Like, what is its features that are like really crucial to what you're doing? And then look at, can you build everything there? Because I think one of the key things for this app that they were looking at was data connection, right? Connecting to a whole bunch of applications. Well, MCP is becoming more and more standard. So like, and I know this company has their own AI agent tool in their environment, but I was like, yeah, but then you still have to log into that tool. But like, why can't I if everything's moving kind of where slowly we're looking at where your large language model of choice becomes your operating system, could I not just use my operating system as the gateway to all the applications? So like what Satya was saying, where the SaaS becomes the back end, I get my agent to go out, extract that data, and do everything for me, rather than me going to your app and extracting that data and you doing whatever I need done on that platform. I was like, I could go to your data, but that means, because the platform they were looking at is a data aggregator, so they usually connects to all the APIs and then runs reports and so on inside their platform. But I was like, that made sense maybe 2 years ago, but now, even with their AI agent, unless they even if they have an MCP to it, I was like, yeah, but you just became a middle person. Why don't I just get my agent, who I know has all these capabilities? I don't know what your agent is capable of, not capable of. I know that if I hit O3, I'm going to get, or Grok 4 or whatever the latest model is, I'm going to get that level of capability versus yours. I don't know. Maybe you run off GPT 3.5. 4.0. I don't know what you're capable of. But this is kind of, when we talk about this, it hits every single company that we work with, because that's how my thinking starts going. It's like, one, what niche software do you have? Two, can you vibe code yourself something internally? And I think the example was, there's this dude on X saying, don't know if it's 100% like if it was legit, but he's like, oh, I built my own CRM, not for anybody else, not to sell it to anybody else, just for our organization. So if you could do that, not to sell, but just for you, to, because you know your business, tailor it just for your application, that's a completely different disruption. Because I think a lot of people are thinking about it. I want to build a software, I'm going to sell it to a whole bunch of people. Well,
and on the Emergent website, emergent.sh, they have examples. You can just one click, here, try this. And they have a rotating series of clone YouTube or clone, Salesforce, or, they're actually promoting this idea that you're talking about, Karl, which is use this full stack development capability that would build something that's production ready and can be deployed on their platform and inexpensively. Use it to clone some software that you already know about. And it's going to go and do the research necessary to understand all the features and functions and then build one for you. And that you're hitting exactly on the use case that Emergent, I think, is implying in their approach to this new wave of vibe coding capabilities.
Because I was thinking, if I keep thinking, if an enterprise, how many times in enterprises or enterprise software, we only use 20% of whatever has been sold to us? There's too many people. But it was like, well, what if we just built that 20% and we don't care about the rest?
Right. Your specific
I know
use
case. I know it's like, oh, well, production scale and all. I'm like, yeah, but I'm only releasing it internally. I'm not trying to sell it to everybody. I'm just releasing it internally. Yes, there's a whole bunch of issues, but those issues aren't going to be compounded when I'm trying to sell to a TAM or an ICP. I'm trying to sell to how many people in an organization would use, I don't know, an ERP or a CRM or whatever? Like the 20, 50, 100 people? That's who I'm trying to build this for. Everybody else, I don't care. So that's a completely different mindset, which has an impact on scale and reliability, which you're not trying to do. So I thought that was very interesting. I'm sure there's going to be, as a SaaS company, I'd be very concerned if what is allowed, what's being happening right now, people are going to catch wind of it. It's like, hey, I could build that. It's like, you can't sell it but maybe as it gets like we're seeing this every week, an agent, something is getting better and better and better and better. So like, where are we going to be in a year?
Yeah.
Much better.
Yeah.
Right. So
Indeed.
like,
So
all those, yeah.
I did want to do a couple follow-up questions. Number one, because Andy, you were comparing emergent as the new hotness on the block compared to Replit and Cursor and things like that. One of the key features that I always enjoyed about Replit is because it's supposed to be fairly holistic for the production flow here. Does emergent also provide hosting, cloud, things like that?
Yeah.
That's
It
Don't think
launches it.
so. I think you have to.
Well,
you have to set up your own.
What I saw last night on it was that
Mhm.
if you want to deploy the app, it's
Yeah.
50 credits per month. That implies that I don't
that
have to do
yeah,
anything
if you
other
can
than
deploy it,
play.
yeah,
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
no, totally. Okay, I did have a slight weave off of the mention of Replit, and apparently Replit is going to be available on the Microsoft App Store.
Azure. Yeah.
Yeah, on Azure. Yeah, so as one more option, which at first glance might seem a little counterproductive if it's kept into the same bowl, I guess, with all other coding agents. But apparently Microsoft looks at it as Replit is more for their non-coders, their non-programmers, where they see their own GitHub Copilot as a coding assistant for programmers, and those are more technically inclined. So we'll see how that rolls out. Before we have to wrap up, I do want to cover just a couple of stories. Number one, CoreWeave has acquired the data center provider Core Scientific for $9 billion. What this will do is it'll give CoreWeave access to more than a gigawatt of data center capacity, which should up their overall compute capabilities as they see more and more use. Mistral is apparently trying to raise $1 billion of equity from investors. So we'll see if Mistral will hit that $1 billion valuation and become a unicorn. And speaking of unicorn, LangChain apparently is going to get their $1 billion valuation, or at least it's rumored that they'll be reaching that. And LangChain, if you're not familiar, provides a lot of the back-end access for LLMs to get real-time information, calling APIs, databases, and things like that. And so we'll see a lot of things out of them. And then, of course, my last story for today is AI in science. And so, as I mentioned at the opening of today's show, apparently, this latest study found in the Journal of Statistical Mechanics, Theory and Experiment, or JSTAT, this research group out of System Media Lab, and apparently what they have found is using a simplified model, but could indicate larger transformers like ChatGPT and things like that, is that they have identified the moment that LLMs move from using word position in a sentence to identify the interconnection to word meaning. And so I guess there is this process where as a model gets trained further and further, it goes from what the initial training information is, that a model will look at where a word is in a sentence, because like in English, there, verbs, conjugations, all of these other things, right? They all give insight into what a sentence structure has meaning and things like that by word placement. But then once it reaches a certain training threshold, it actually switches to semantic. So where individual word meanings have interconnectedness. So it's kind of interesting to see that there is a threshold, and the researchers they akin it to like when when matter switches states. So like from a liquid to a gas. So when like water turns from a liquid into like steam. So and they suspect that this kind of information will give them insights into overall processes, how to create more efficiencies, and things like that. So I think it might be a really interesting insight on further development of transformer-based languages and models and things like that. So maybe something to keep an eye on. Okay, well, that's all I have. Andy, do you have anything else that you got to talk about today?
Nothing pressing. Let's wrap it.
Awesome. Okay, well, thank you everybody for joining us today. I want to thank all our folks in chat, our viewers, subscribers, and if you want to continue the discussion, please join our Slack community, and you can head over to the dailyAIshowcommunity.com to sign up. Tomorrow, we're going to talk about video world models like VJEPA 2, which will give insight based on the analysis of video. And then on Friday, thump, 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 we go down the rabbit hole with our bi-weekly wrap up. So we'll see what stories people really want to continue on Friday's show. And that is it from us. So see you all tomorrow, everyone. Aloha.